Let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time you truly felt your birthday? Not just remembered it. Not just replied to a few messages out of politeness. But actually felt it. The way you did when you were younger. The quiet excitement in your chest when you woke up. The sense that this day was somehow different. The feeling that, for once, the world was paying attention to the fact that you existed. There were balloons once. There was cake. There were eyes on you. And there was a small, innocent belief that whispered, "Today is my day." And then time passed. You grew older. And at some point, your birthday began to look ordinary. You wake up. You check your phone. Maybe there are a few notifications. Maybe your mother calls. And then the day continues, quietly folding itself into work, responsibilities, and routines. When someone asks, you smile and say, "I don't really care about my birthday. It's just another day. I'm not into celebrations anymore." It sounds mature. It sounds calm. It sounds like you've outgrown the need for attention. But the real question is, have you? Because beneath that calm surface, there is often a silent story that rarely gets told. People who treat their birthday like a normal day are rarely cold, detached, or emotionally shallow. In fact, they are often the opposite. They tend to be reflective, observant, emotionally aware. They are people who have learned, over time, how to lower their expectations, not because they don't feel, but because they have felt deeply before, and learned what disappointment does. Psychologically, birthdays act like mirrors. They reflect how you feel about being alive, how you relate to attention, and how comfortable you are being seen. When someone says, "I don't care about my birthday," sometimes what they are really saying is, "I don't need validation anymore." But other times, what they mean is, "I stopped expecting it." Those two statements sound similar, but they are not the same. There is a very thin line between emotional maturity and emotional withdrawal. And birthdays have a strange way of revealing which side we've leaned toward. Some people genuinely grow out of birthday excitement. Not out of sadness, but out of peace. They no longer need a specific day to feel joy. Their happiness is spread quietly across ordinary moments: morning coffee, familiar routines, solitude that feels safe. To them, life itself has become the celebration. But for others, birthdays are complicated. Not because of age, not because of numbers, but because of memory. Birthdays have a way of resurfacing moments when someone once hoped to feel important, and didn't. Moments when expectations were high and responses were low. Moments when silence spoke louder than words. And so instead of saying, "This year, I hope someone remembers," they say, "It's just another day." Indifference becomes a disguise. Protection wears the mask of maturity. This is where the psychology becomes fascinating. When emotional disappointment happens repeatedly, the brain adapts. It lowers anticipation as a survival strategy. This is known as emotional self-protection. You stop hoping too loudly. You stop expecting too much. You teach yourself that needing less hurts less. And while that may sound sad, it is actually a form of emotional intelligence. The brain prioritizes stability over excitement when excitement has historically led to pain. But there is a quiet cost. Over time, That same protection can dull joy. A heart that learned how to shield itself eventually becomes too careful, too restrained, too guarded. You begin to move through your own life like a guest at someone else's gathering, polite, observant, but never fully present. Think about this. How many people casually say, "Oh, I don't really do birthdays." And yet, later that night, they still notice who messaged, who didn't, who remembered without being reminded. Almost everyone does this, even those who claim they don't care. Because caring is human. And pretending not to care is still a form of caring, just compressed, inverted, hidden beneath composure. Psychologists refer to this as avoidant validation behavior. It's when you convince yourself that you don't need recognition because part of you fears not receiving it. This pattern often forms in people who once learned that emotional needs were inconvenient, that relying on others was unsafe, that it was easier to ask for nothing than to risk disappointment again. So when you meet someone who treats their birthday like any other day, don't assume they are emotionally detached. Sometimes they have simply made peace with disappointment. They have traded excitement for control. But control always has a cost. Because beneath the calm phrase, "It's just another day," lies a deeper emotional truth. We all want to be seen. Not praised. Not celebrated loudly. Just seen. Birthdays are deeply symbolic. They are not about achievement. They are not about status. They are about existence. One day a year that acknowledges you simply because you are alive. And for many people, that reminder brings mixed emotions. Gratitude, loneliness, nostalgia, indifference. Sometimes all at once. Because birthdays also remind us of time. They quietly ask, "How far have you come?" And, "How far haven't you?" That is the psychological trigger most people don't talk about. For some, treating their birthday like a normal day is a way of staying grounded. If they don't make it special, time doesn't feel as heavy. If they don't mark the passing year, it doesn't feel like something is slipping away. There is also a subtle cultural shift at play. As children, birthdays are social milestones. They represent belonging. But in adulthood, attention can feel uncomfortable. Many adults quietly struggle with the tension between wanting to be noticed and not wanting to appear needy. That inner conflict shows itself clearly on birthdays, especially in people who grew up being the responsible one, the strong one, the giver. Their minds internalized a message early on: your needs come second. Your joy is optional. Others matter more. They remember everyone else's important days and slowly forget their own. Over time, their birthday starts to feel irrelevant. They aren't even sure how they would react if someone planned something big for them. It feels awkward, unnecessary, unfamiliar. But that discomfort isn't humility. It's emotional fatigue. Deep down, many of these people still want to feel seen, just not in a loud way. They don't want attention. They want understanding. They want someone to remember not just the date they were born, but the person they have been becoming. This is the paradox of emotional maturity. The more self-reliant you become, the harder it feels to receive love without suspicion. So birthdays turn into neutral zones, places where vulnerability could surface, but instead get replaced by practicality. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's just get through the day. But behind that quiet tone, the mind is processing many emotions at once. Memories of childhood excitement, subtle grief over lost connections, gratitude for survival, a soft longing for simplicity, for joy that once came effortlessly. That's why this psychology feels so universal. Even if you think you've outgrown birthdays, a part of you still remembers what it felt like to be celebrated without hesitation. There is also a deeper layer at work. Many adults experience something called temporal self-awareness around their birthday. A moment when you look back at who you were a year ago and silently measure the distance between who you wanted to be and who you are now. And sometimes, that distance is uncomfortable. That's why for some people, birthdays feel more like mirrors than parties. They reflect the gap between expectation and reality. And rather than face that reflection publicly, people choose to downplay the day altogether. It's not apathy. It's introspection. If you've ever felt strange on your birthday, like you're supposed to feel something but don't, know that this is normal. You're not ungrateful. You're not detached. You're aware. Aware that time is moving. Aware that validation feels different now. Aware that celebration has taken on a deeper meaning. Because birthdays were never really about age. They were about meaning. As a child, your birthday was about the world recognizing you. As an adult, it becomes about recognizing yourself. Less about gifts. More about presence. Less about who shows up. More about how you've shown up in your own life. That quiet shift explains why many people stop making a big deal out of it. Maybe you've stopped trying to be celebrated by the world, and started trying to make peace with your own journey. And yet, even in that peace, there's often a quiet echo. I hope someone still remembers. That's the paradox of emotional evolution. You can be grounded and still crave connection. You can be content and still miss being seen. And that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Treating your birthday like a normal day doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've learned that joy doesn't need to be scheduled. Joy can exist quietly, in the way you continue showing up for yourself. Day after day. That's the softest form of celebration. Invisible, but real. And here's the deeper truth. When someone treats their birthday like a normal day, they're not rejecting joy. They're redefining it. They're saying, I no longer need the world's permission to feel good about being alive. That shift, from external celebration to internal acknowledgement, is one of the quietest signs of maturity. Over time, the things that once made us feel special, parties, gifts, public recognition, begin to lose their shine. What starts to matter more is alignment. Did I live honestly this year? Did I grow? Did I show up when it mattered? For many people, a birthday now looks like a quiet walk, a favorite meal, or a day of reflection. Not loud happiness, but peaceful solitude. And our culture often misunderstands that. We confuse silence with emptiness. But silence can be sacred. Still, there is a gentle truth worth remembering. Even the most self-sufficient souls deserve to feel special sometimes. Not because they need validation, but because recognition nourishes the parts of them that carry others. People who treat their birthday like any other day are often the same people who hold space for everyone else's milestones. They are the quiet anchors. The ones who remember your dates. The ones who check in first. The ones who give without keeping score. And sometimes, they forget that they, too, deserve light. If you've ever felt a quiet ache on your birthday, one that doesn't demand attention but still lingers, that's your heart reminding you that connection still matters. Birthdays aren't meant to celebrate perfection or achievement. They exist to acknowledge that you're still here, still learning, still becoming. And maybe that's the real psychology behind it all. Not indifference, but integration. Joy and reflection existing side by side. And even then, small gestures still matter. A message. A call. A moment of remembering. To someone who says, "It's just another day." It's never about scale. It's about sincerity. Because deep down, none of us want to be invisible. We just want to be loved in the language we understand. If your birthday passes like an ordinary day, maybe that's not something to fix. Maybe it's something to honor. Because what you're really saying is, my life is already meaningful without one specific day proving it. That's not detachment. That's gratitude, disguised. But allow yourself softness. If you miss the excitement you once had, that doesn't mean you've regressed. It means you remember what innocence felt like before the world taught you restraint. And perhaps the greatest gift you can give yourself on your birthday is this: to acknowledge the child who once counted down to midnight with wide eyes. And quietly whisper, "We made it another year." That kind of celebration doesn't fade when the candles go out. It stays. So if your birthday ever feels like just another day, don't feel guilty. It's not emptiness. It's evolution. Meaning doesn't need noise. Sometimes, it only needs awareness. A still moment. A deep breath. You don't have to make a wish. You already are one. And that, celebrated loudly or quietly, is always enough.